They find an excuse to do a thing which ought not to be done. I find an excuse to do a thing which ought to be done. The phenomenon of reverse excuse. You often find an excuse to do a thing which you want to do, but you ought not do it. So, why not devise a strategy to find an excuse to do that thing which you don't want to do, but you ought to do? A bit complicated? Everything is complicated till it becomes simple.
सब कुछ मुश्किल लगता है जब तक वो आसान नहीं हो जाता.
So let's make it simple. Human mind has innumerable passions, and this I have tried to explain in my episode on the law of passions. Under this law, each passion has to be used in the right time, in the right measure, at the right place, so as to accomplish optimum performance of human mind. This episode explores one of those cores of passions, the passion for finding excuses. Before I move further, let me try to explain as to what does excuse mean and imply. In plain words, excuse is an engineered justification which suits the convenience of any person, which shows up as if it is a credible reason to do or not to do a thing. The passion for excuses primarily exists in human mind for the reason of invigorating a fervor to accomplish those things which are conducive to your goals. Second, the passion for excuses is also there to lessen the gravity of your distress when you fail in certain missions. It helps your mind to tide over the crisis. In other words, it serves as a laxative. However, here we are concerned with only the first element of this passion for finding excuses. The second element, that is of laxative, we will discuss some other time. This type of passion for finding excuses to do or not to do a thing is a corollary to the concept of judge in your own cause. For example, if you like a particular person, maybe your own sibling, you'll find excuses to say that he or she is great, whereas when judged by a neutral person, his inference could be radically different. So, you always find excuses to like those things or to do those things which you love to do, even though based on an impartial analysis, you would not do those things. In short, the passion for finding excuses gets corrupted and works negatively. It impels you to do those things which you should not do, but which otherwise you enjoy doing. Take another example. For a person addicted to hard liquor, he would always find an excuse to drink by creating a false belief that liquor won't harm him. But as the concept goes, you can create a positive angle from any negative angle. But for that, you'll need some bit of thought manipulation. Now, the pertinent question arises how to create a positive angle from a negative scenario. The strategy of reverse excuses. Under this approach, you change your strategy whereby instead of finding an excuse to do a thing which you want to do, instead you find an excuse to do a thing which you don't want to do, but which is conducive to your life and to your ambitions. Now, let me explain through an example. A calorie-rich food in a restaurant, people love to have it. A slight excuse and the feast goes on. With the passage of time, this leads to lifestyle diseases which ruins the life's enjoyment. Now, this is where the phenomenon of excuse sets in. Why can't you find an excuse to avoid food rather than to have food? So, if there is a delicious, rich food waiting for you, just create an excuse. Oh, I'm busy, or I have to go for workout, or I have to watch a film. Oh, today it's my salad day, or I'm on fast today, or oh, look at him with food. He's so fat and clumsy, and I'm sleek. Oh, look at him carrying a box of medicine always and suffering the pain of lifestyle ailments. And so with no food, I'm so happy. I don't need a box of medicines. Out of the many excuses, you can choose one of the potent excuses so as not to have delicious food and yet be happy. So instead of finding an excuse to eat, find an excuse not to eat. Even otherwise, the easiest thing is to make an excuse. So, a bit of mental conditioning and that could bring dramatic results. So, if you love making an excuse to do a thing which harms you, then you, by the same strategy, can make an excuse to not to do a thing that harms you. My dear friends, get deep into the theory of passions and use each passion to your benefit. And this is how the passion for creating excuses can condition to spur your actions and to enliven your life. Thus, I sum up, they find an excuse to do a thing which ought not to be done. I find an excuse to do a thing which ought to be done.